Welcome back everyone to Lamas Creations DIY. My name is Tammy. You are watching the winter edition. Let's start crafting. For this craft, you will need a canvas board. I picked up mine at Dollarama. It's 8 by 20 inches. I think I got it for $2.50. First, what I'm going to do is remove it out of the package, of course. And then we're going to take the canvas off. Just using my rotary tool cutter, I'm going to slice along the edge along where the staples are and get that canvas off. I am so happy I picked up this rotary tool cutter. It makes things so much easier, especially for cutting fabric and stuff. Then, taking my mixture of blue paint, I'm going to paint the entire frame this color. Blue paint is like black and blue, and I mixed a whole bunch of colors in there to get this color. Probably never be able to mix it again, but I have enough for now. Then, taking my sheepskin chalk paint, I'm just, while the frame is still wet, I'm going to rub it along the frame and smudging it in, just to give it kind of like that snowy look. Going into my stash, I pulled out a bunch of snowflakes. These are stickers, and there was magnets, some little wood ones, and I've got some silver stickers and some other ones. So first what I do is I cut out the ones that I'm liking so that I can see when I'm placing them how they'll look. And then I just start playing around with all the snowflakes, trying to figure out how I want this here project to look. I have an idea in my mind, but trying to lay it out, I was trying to see if I can bring it out from my mind. So I just keep playing around and moving things around, and I was having a lot of troubles trying to get it to what I was thinking of, right? I just kept playing and looking, and then I gave it a break. And I thought, I think it's because the background is white. So I painted the entire canvas with this gray. I think it's called Parisian gray. It's chalk paint. And then while it's still wet, I blend in this blue color, kind of almost making it look like it's stormy outside, and then let it dry. I have these little blocks. I believe they're dominoes for kids. What we're going to do is I'm going to glue all 4 pieces together side by side like this. Just a little hot glue and wiping off any of the glue that seeps out. Then, taking my sheepskin chalk paint again, I give the entire thing a coat. I don't worry too much about the back because you're not going to see it. And then I go over it with the mixture of blue, blending that in while, yes, the paint is still wet. Then I take a small chippy brush and I go in from the edges, giving it a little bit of definition. Taking my white acrylic paint, I'm going to paint all the snowflakes. Wasn't sure how many I was going to use, so I just painted them all. Now our canvas is dry. We're going to attach it back onto the frame from behind. Laying it out and taking my stapler, I'm just going to staple it along all the edges. Making sure I get the frame. Then again, taking my rotary tool cutter, I'm going to cut off the extra all the way around. That rotary tool cutter can actually slice the wood on this frame. I know, because I did it. Now that this little piece is dry, we're going to take our letters that spell out snow, and we're going to hot glue them on top of this little piece. Just with some hot glue all along the edges, and then I put a bunch on the little magnet because they're supposed to be magnets, but of course I don't use them for magnets. Now, figuring it out where I want it on my frame, I want to put it in the center. So grabbing my ruler, I'm going to center it up as best as I can. And then using some hot glue, we're going to glue it down into place. I stick some on the back and then on the bottom of this board, and onto the frame it goes. Then taking various snowflakes, the sticker ones first, I'm going to lay down some Mod Podge. Pick a snowflake that I like, place it on top of the Mod Podge, and then Mod Podge on top of it. Stickers weren't very sticky, and I didn't want these to fall off. And I continue adding them, just in places here and there. There's some other silver snowflakes that I'm putting on now. I put some of those on. Just all over. And of course Mod Podge on top of those. And then when that's dry, oh yes, and I glue these little magnet snowflakes on the edges of the board that says snow. And then when the Mod Podge is all dry, I do another coat of Mod Podge on top of everything on the canvas. On top of the snowflakes, I'd have to dab. And then everywhere else, I would just rub it all in. Taking some nylon string, I'm going to measure out, cut off a piece. And then this string comes in 3 little pieces, so I separate the pieces. And then taking some hot glue, I hot glue one end to the back of the snowflake. And then on the other end, I tie 2 knots in the end. Measure it out, put a little dab of glue onto the frame, and then put that knot that we tied right into that glue and hold it for a couple seconds. And I do that for all the hanging snowflakes that I position on this frame. I think I use 5. 1, 2, I think it's 5. Little dab of glue, hold the knot in the glue, cut off the extra string. And that's what it looks like so far. Now to make a bow. I have this satiny ribbon. I don't know where I got it from. I cut off a piece, frame it into an awareness ribbon, scrunch it up into the center with my fingers, and then taking another piece of that nylon rope, I do a double knot and a little hot glue in between the 2 knots, and clip it off, cut my tails on an angle, and I burn the ends so that they don't fray, very lightly. You don't want to catch the whole thing on fire. Glue it into the corner of the frame. And then I take one of those little snowman magnets and I glue that right into the middle of the bow. Now, taking some more nylon rope, just thicker stuff, I tie a knot in the ends. I also cut off that extra little fray part. And then using my staple gun, I staple it into the frame. Just above the knot so it doesn't slip through. And when you're done with that, this project is complete. To start out with, we're going to be using different types of materials and colors and fabrics, and some are fleece and some are fuzzy, and the mop head pieces, all kinds of different fabrics in beiges and blues and whites, and also 2-inch styrofoam balls. I got that entire bag for 25 cents. Now what we're going to do is take those individual pieces of fabric and we're going to glue it onto the styrofoam ball. What I did is I started on a corner, wrapped it up, glued it down, and then taking each other corner, I would glue and wrap and cut off any extra material that I didn't need. And I continued doing it until the entire ball was covered. Use your finger protectors, glue comes through. Another way I figured out to do it is I cut, I think those are 1.5 or 2-inch pieces of fabric, I would put some glue on, stick it on the ball, and then glue down the edge of the fabric, roll it up the ball, press down the edges, and then glue on the end. And then I would take the leftover piece and I would glue that the other way to hide the spots. Excuse me. I figured out if you cut it out like 3 or 3.5 inch pieces, it'll cover the entire ball. Now I'm going to show you how I put on the mop head pieces. So I just put some glue down, lay the mop head piece down, wrap it around, add some extra glue, glue down the end, and then I would just continue going. Glue down the mop head end, wrap it around, and add glue here and there as I needed. Because as you get closer to the bottom of the styrofoam ball, the mop head pieces don't want to stay, so you add a little glue here and there just to help it stay into place. And I continue going around and around, and around and around and around, until I get down to the end. And I just add in a bunch of glue, wrap around the mop head. And for this one, I was short just a little tiny piece, so I cut off a little tiny piece and stuffed it in there. And these are all the balls that I made. All the different colors, blues, grays, whites, creams. I have this wreath, I believe it's 12 inches, and I took it outside and coated it with some fake snow. Now what I'm going to do is taking the balls, I'm going to hot glue them onto the wreath, and then as it touches the other ball, I hot glue it to the other ball. And I have no pattern, I'm just picking out a ball, just making sure I'm not putting two the same beside each other, and I just keep on going. Then for the second row, I just take a ball, glue it to the wreath, and then I also glue it to the points where it's touching any other ball. And I continue going around and around until I finish on the inside of this wreath as well. And like I said, no rhyme or reason, I'm just picking colors as I go and trying to be sure that I'm not sticking the same one side by side. Now for the third row, I am just going to start filling in the spots. And again, just picking whatever ball and adding them into places. And I basically cover up the entire top between the 2 rows of balls, looking like this. And I used 32 styrofoam balls and had 1 extra. Now to make a bow. I lost the footage of where I wrapped it all, but I took these 2 ribbons from the dollar store, made 1 loops for there, and then I have 2 for there, the white one. And then I made some tails, cut slits in the center. I'm going to take a pipe cleaner, or people call them Chanel stems, slide it through those little slits we made, tighten it, and then twist it as much as you can onto itself. And then what I did is I cut off these little pieces, which I should not have done because I needed those pieces. Then we fluff our bow. Move the tails down, fluff all the loops. Every good bow needs a good fluffing. Moving those loops aside, fluffing them out. And I continue fluffing and fluffing and fluffing. Fluff, fluff, fluff. And it's one of those bows that you just continue going and going until you're happy with it. Dovetail the ends of the tails. That just means cutting, folding it in half and cutting from the outside in. Then I have this silver ribbon. I'm going to wrap it around the center and tie it in a knot. And this is where I remembered, oh, I need a pipe cleaner there to attach it to my wreath. So I stuck a little piece in there and tied it in. Now we're going to take that pipe cleaner, turn the wreath around, feed it through some of the branches there, and twist it onto each other. And again, fluffing the bow, moving the tails where you want them, where you like them, fluffing the bow on the top, moving the loops around, and when you're done with fluffing that bow, once again, this project is complete. For my first project, you're going to need some tumbling tower blocks. I picked these ones up at Dollarama. And what you're going to do is you're going to glue together, just with some hot glue, 3 pieces. And you'll do this 4 times. So you'll have 3 sets of 4. No, 4 sets of 3. Then, taking some more hot glue, you'll put some on top of the first set of 3 and glue the second set on top, and continue going up until all 4 sets of 3 are glued together. Just like that. And you'll do this 2 more times to get 3 blocks. Then, taking some wood filler. At first I was just going to fill in the holes, and then I thought I really liked the way it was looking, so I decided to do the wood filler all around the edges on all 3 of the blocks. And I just kept going around with my fingers and smoothing it out and making it puffy and bumpy until they were all done. And this is how they all turned out. I thought they looked pretty neat. Almost looks like icing. Can't eat this stuff though. Now, taking one of the blocks and figuring out what side I wanted, I'm going to take my pencil and draw on eyes, carrot nose, and his mouth. And then taking my black Sharpie and an orange paint pen, I'm going to fill it all in. If you haven't guessed it, we're making a snowman. Then I have these fuzzy socks that I picked up at Dollarama. I'm going to take one and put it over top of its head. Play around with the hat. We do a little more later. Then, taking the 3 blocks, I'm going to take some wood glue, put a little bit on the bottom. I'm also going to use some hot glue, put it in spots where the wood glue isn't, and adhere it to the other block. And I'm doing it kind of winky wonky there, kind of like that. And then I do the same with the head. Then, taking some pillow stuffing filler, I'm going to add a little bit of glue and put that in place everywhere the blocks hang over top of the other one, just to cover in that wood and to make it look like it's got snow. And I do this all the way around. Excuse me, just adding hot glue and the fluff. And I also put a little bit on top of the hat. Now, going back to the hat, we're going to cut off an end, and I didn't like the way it was sitting on top of the head, so I used some more of that stuffing and filled in the hat a bit to give it a little more puffiness and fullness. And I just played around with it until I liked it. Taking another piece of that sock, I'm going to tie it off on the end, just in a double knot, and I add a little bit of glue in between the 2 knots, and then I trim off the ends. Then I take a little hot glue, add it to the hat, tack it down to the side, and with that, this project is done. He's cute. Or she's cute, I guess. Could be a she, right? I love her. On to the next craft. Now, these are the tumbling tower blocks I was talking about that I got at Dollarama. They're $4 and they're much bigger than the normal ones I get. And they also come with dice. Now, taking 1, 2, 3, 4 sets of 2, we're going to glue them together. All 4 sets. 4 sets? Yeah. Then, taking those, we're going to... I'll let you watch more than I can explain. It's hard to explain this part, but we're basically going to form a square out of the sets of blocks. Just like so. And we're going to make 2 of those. Then, taking some more, we're going to take 3, glue them end to end. And you're going to need 4 of these. Excuse me. And I just use hot glue. You can use any other glue. I just use hot glue. Now, taking these 4 sets of 3 that we just made, we're going to glue them on the corners of one of the squares we had made with the tumbling tower blocks. in all four corners. They're a little wonky and not straight, but it all works out in the end. Then, taking some hot glue, we'll add glue to the ends of these 3 sets, 4 sets, 3 sets of 4 sets, whatever, and glue the other square on top of that. Too many sets with numbers, man. Now, taking some wood filler, this one's pink, I'm going to fill in where all those numbers are because there was a little bit of a groove there and I didn't want those to show. And what I like about this wood filler is when it's done and dried, it's white. Then, taking a sander, I'm just using a hand sander, I'm going to sand off all the extra wood filler that is not needed. And then we also have to clean it, get all that dust off. I'm just using a rag and some water. Don't want any of that dust when you paint or stain, or you can leave it the way it is if you want to. Now I'm using sheepskin chalk paint by Folk Art, and I'm going to paint the entire thing with this color. You can use stain, you can use a different color paint, you can leave it the way it is, any way you want. I'm going for the wintry effect, so that's why I'm using this one. It's not really a white, but it's not a cream either. While that's drying, we're going to make a wreath, and I didn't realize I wasn't recording. So what I did is I took those picks that I got off of Amazon, cut the arms off, and then formed them into a circle using floral wire. And then using these other green leaves things, I just find a place where I like it, and then use some hot glue, and I tack it into place all around the circle. We're going to make a little wreath. Then I take some white eucalyptus. I pick off 3 from the branches, and again I glue those going around the circle. Just in places where you like. Now that that's all done, I take a little bit of white paint and a brush, and I'm going to dab all the way around this little wreath. I find if you dab it in instead of brushing it on, it looks a little more like snow than if you were to brush it on, and it gets down into all those little pine cones, all that little picks, and this is what I did all the way around the wreath to give it that flocked snow effect. I have this round shower curtain and some jute cord. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue that little opening closed. In hindsight, I should have did this at the end, but it's all good. Taking off a bunch of the jute rope, I'm going to add a little bit of hot glue on the inside of this ring, and then we're going to glue the jute rope all the way around this shower curtain ring. And you just glue and glue and glue, wrap and glue. Basically, this here only took me like 8 minutes maybe, and that's a little longer than I think. Looks like it take a long time, but it doesn't really take that long. And then I'll show you when I get down to the end, because that little part is a little skinnier than the rest. I add a bunch of glue, and then I wrap it onto each other first, and then I wrap it all the way to the end. Add a little more hot glue, and then I go back over it just to thicken it up so it's the same size, almost the same size as what is there. Add a little hot glue, cut off the extra, and then I take my hot glue gun, add some glue, and then I rub it down with the tip so that it smooths it all out. Then I take my lighter and burn off all those little stringies that are off. This also gets all the glue strings off too, but be careful. You don't want to catch anything on fire. Then again, taking this sheepskin, I'm going to dab it all over the ring. It's got to have that snowy look. Now it's time to assemble. We're going to take that ring And figuring out where I'm going to need to put the glue, we're going to take some Eileen's Tacky Glue, put it on some spots, and then hot glue on the other spots, and we're going to attach it to the top of what we're making is a lantern, and hold it there till it sets. And then I also take a little extra hot glue and add it in around just for some extra security. I didn't want this to fall off. You can't pick it up by it, but you know, you still don't want to fall off. Then we stick our wreath inside on the bottom. And I have this little candle holder, and I took some styrofoam beads, put it in, battery operated light, and that goes inside. But our lantern needs a bow. So I have this silver ribbon. I measure out to see how big of a bow I want, cut it off, and then I measure off how long the tails I want, and I cut 2 of those off. This ribbon I got from Dollarama. Then the bow ribbon part, I glue the ends together, cinch it in the middle, and then I have some nylon white cord, tie it in a double knot, fix my loops the best I can, and then I cut off the extra little pieces. Then, taking the tails, I dovetail both the ends. And then I fold the other end almost like an accordion. And then I add a little bit of hot glue to hold it together. I do that to both of them. Figuring out where I want the tail to place, I hot glue it down. Hot glue the other one down. And then we hot glue the bow on top. And then I decided to add a little tiny white pom-pom in the middle of the bow. And with that, this project is complete. In this first craft, I have these 2 1x6. They're pine beaded boards. They normally go on walls or ceilings or whatnot. Ton and grooved. I'm going to put some wood glue along the tongue part there and attach it to the other one and let it dry. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this folk art paint, and I'm just going to do a messy painting. I don't want full coverage. I just want a messy look. Look a little distressed. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm taking these beer caps, and I'm going to spray paint most of them this silver color, and 2 I spray paint black. And then because of the silver one, it kind of got little silver dots on it. It's kind of neat. Now, taking these same beer caps, I'm going to lay them out. Small circle on top, bigger circle on the bottom. And then using my hot glue gun, I'm going to glue them all down, one by one, in the spots that I laid them out to be. Now this is a piece off of a pajama, part of the pant. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the hem off, but we're not going to throw it away. We're going to keep that. We're going to use it on the snowman at some point. And then I'm going to cut this in half, and then using the seam, I'm going to draw a half circle and cut that out with my scissors. Then, taking that half circle, we're going to position it on top of the snowman's head and hot glue it down. And this will be his hat. I'm just hot gluing all around the edges. Careful, hot glue's hot. Then, taking that hem, I'm going to fold it in half and make it for a scarf on our snowman. Just positioning it in between the small and big circle, making a little knot there, and gluing down the little ends. All using hot glue. Now, taking a fine sharp marker, I'm going to draw on his eyes, his nose, and his mouth. Carrot nose, cute little mouth. And then taking my paint markers and a Sharpie, I'm going to color everything in. Next, I mixed together some white and black to make a gray, and I'm going to dry brush it all along the board, just using a chippy brush and just lightly going over it. Just stress it a little more. Then I found a little blue pom-pom, and I'm going to glue it on top of his hat. And this project is done. On to the next craft. So I found this jar in my stash. It has a beautiful etching, like raised etching of snowflakes on either side. I mixed this paint with some, I think it's called peacock blue, and some black to make it a darker black. And I'm just going to paint the entire jar with this color. Peacock blue is a little too bright of a blue for me, so I wanted it a little darker. And this is how it turned out all dry. Now, taking some white acrylic paint and some Mod Podge, I'm going to mix the two together. I learned this trick from Sandra over at the Schroven's Nest. She didn't have any wax, and I don't have any wax. So she did this and kind of like made her own wax. And then I'm just going to brush over top of these snowflakes, just to bring them out. I loved this idea. And I do both sides. Now that that's done, we're going to take this styrofoam ball and we're going to glue it on top of the jar. Now in the end, I added different glue, some Eileen's tacky glue along with the hot glue, because I ended up decapitating this snowman a couple times because the hot glue doesn't hold. Now taking this black fabric, I'm just going to kind of wrap it around his head there and glue it on with some hot glue. I'm basically going to be making his hat. I started using my detail gun, which I'm happy I have because it's a lot easier to get into the areas with it where you don't need a whole bunch of glue, you just need a little bit. Now I'm going to scrunch it there in the middle, and using some white ribbon, I'm going to wrap it around, tie it, and I also make a little bow on top. And then I snip off the extra, cut around the edge to curve it out. I'm going to add some little blue buttons for his eyes, use a marker for his mouth, and his nose will go on soon. Now taking some more of this black fabric, I'm going to glue on a piece. It's about 1 inch wide as a scarf, and then I have this little tiny snowman sticker. I'm going to glue it right in the middle there. Taking a piece of mop, I'm going to glue that around the edge of his hat, or her hat. I guess she could be a girl. Why not? Trim it off for each side, and now here comes his nose. I painted an end of a skewer stick, and I'm just going to hot glue it and stick it into the foam ball right there in the center. Taking these 3 pumpkins, I paint them all this color. They took about 2 coats each. In the end, you will see I only used 2. I thought I wanted to do 3, but 2 look better. Taking a skewer stick, I'm going to poke it through the 2 pumpkins and hot glue it together, just to help these pumpkins stay together a little better. And then I snip off the extra skewer stick and watch it go. Phew, it flew. Taking an old sock, I'm going to stick it on top of the head, wrap it around. I actually don't glue this down because it stayed pretty good. Seeing how far I want up, and I cut off the rest of that sock. Taking this red grosgrain ribbon, I'm folding it in half and gluing it together because it was too thick and I wanted something a little thinner and I didn't have anything. And then I'm just going to wrap it around the top of his hat to hold it into place. Now taking some more red ribbon, I'm going to wrap it around in between the top and the bottom. I'm going to tie it at the side, excuse me, and then I angle cut the ends so they're not so long. I have these 2 black pom-poms pom-poms I'm going to put on his eyes, and 2 red ones for the buttons on his body. Again, using my paint markers, I'm going to draw in his nose, and I draw in his mouth as well. And he's done. I really enjoyed making these. I love making snowmen. I hope you like them too. For this first craft, I'm using this piece of scrap white pine. It's glued together, and I drew out kind of like a wibbly circle pattern and 2 mitts, and I'm going to cut them out with my jigsaw. And here's how they turned out. Then I'm going to sand everything really well using my hand sander. After that's all done, we're going to give everything 1 coat of white paint. And as you can see, I'm going from the middle out, and that's so that on the edges I don't get any of those big drip marks for when it drips down. So that's why I did it this way. I do all the sides, and I do the mitts, but just the edges and the top of the mitts. We don't need to do the bottom. Now that the white is dry on the mitts, we're going to take some white acrylic paint and a little dab of black, mix it all together to make a nice little gray, light gray, and we're going to coat the mitts with this gray on the front and on all the edges. Again, don't worry about the back because we won't see that. And I only give this 1 coat. Now, using this styrofoam ball, I believe it's a 4-inch, and these old pajama pants that don't fit any of my boys anymore, we're going to take one of the legs, and the bottom part of the leg, we're going to wrap it around the styrofoam ball, and then I measure out, I don't really know the measurement, it's about, I would say, 14 inches long. Cut it off. I take a piece of string and I tie it off about 1.5 inches down from the end. I just tie it off with a couple knots. Then, taking my scissors, I give it a shaggy end. Just snipping along the fabric just to give it a nice wispy end. Now, taking my hot glue, we're going to glue the hat down, or the pajama pant down, just here and there around the ball. And yes, it's going to be a hat. Taking my black Sharpie marker, we're going to draw on some eyes. And then taking some blue acrylic paint, I'm going to paint in the bottom part of the eyes because I wanted him to have some blue eyes. Just going slowly, taking my time. I take some black acrylic paint, give my snowman my snowman head some eyebrows. And then while I'm waiting for that to dry, I take a skewer stick and I paint the end of this skewer stick orange so we can have his nose. Taking the end of a paintbrush, I dab it into some white and I give him those little dots in the middle of his eyes. Now that the nose is dry, we're going to snip it off. And I wanted it to be kind of on an angle, so I push it into the styrofoam ball kind of on an angle. Add a little bit of hot glue and hold it there until it sets, and then I add a little more of hot glue on top. Taking my black paint marker, we're going to draw him on a crooked little smile. Cute little smile. Then I take some white acrylic paint and some pink, and I use this round sponge dabber brush, and we're going to give him some cute little rosy cheeks. He's outside. Gotta have rosy cheeks. Now, taking the other end of the pant leg, we're going to measure off, snip off a little piece, cut that piece in half, and then we're going to glue it onto the end of the mitts. giving it a little cuff. And I do that to both the mitts. Then I take my scissors and I trim around the edge to make sure it's all nice and clean. Now, taking the head of our snowman and the bottom part of the board, we're going to take some E6000, put it around the bottom, and then we're going to take a whole bunch of hot glue, put it in the middle, stick our head where we want it onto the platform, and hold it there until it sets. And this is what it looks like so far. Now, taking his mitts, you're going to place them down on the board, wherever you like, and again, using E6000 on both mitts, and some hot glue. We're going to glue his mitts down onto the board. Our poor snowman is melting. Oh no! Taking some more of that pajama pant, I'm going to take the leg, cut it down in half, and then on the other side I cut halfway up. And then I'm going to do a hem all along the edges to give it a nice clean edge. Now we're going to wrap that around the snowman's head, and then we're going to glue it as close as we can between the snowman head and the board, so we don't see all that hot glue in there. And it cleans it up a bit and gives him a scarf. Then I turn it around, I trim off the back, just following the board, and I just tuck and glue until it's all nice in place. Looking something like that. I'm going to fray the ends of the scarf, which was actually the bottom of the pant legs. And then taking another piece of the pant leg part, we're going to take a piece and wrap it around the end of his hat to cover up that string. Now the fun part, taking some stuffing from a pillow or whatever you have, and just using my fingers, I'm going to spread it out and fluff it out. And then I'm going to use some hot glue, put it down onto the board, and place the fluff on top, making it look like snow. And I just continue doing this all the way around. Everywhere there's a board that you can see, I put some of this fluff down just to cover it up and help it to look like snow. And when you're all done that, this project is done. I made one of these guys, I would say 17 years ago. And I thought, why not try and make another one? This is a bigger version of what I had made, and of course a little different. But I'll show you, the end photo is the one that I made about 17, 18 years ago. He was made using toe socks. Does anyone know what toe socks are? Or have you ever worn them? I have, and I actually liked wearing them. Let me know down in the comments. And here's the one I made years ago. I would like to thank everyone for coming and watching this with me. I so enjoyed putting this together for you, all of my favorite winter crafts. If you're new here, please subscribe, like this video, and don't forget that little bell. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. So happy you were able to join me. I hope everybody has a wonderful winter and a wonderful Christmas. We'll see you again next time. Bye, everyone.